new signs that hostage negotiator Terry Waite may himself be a hostage. This is the CBS Morning News. Good morning. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. It's Monday, February 2nd.
There are several developments from Lebanon this morning regarding Western hostages and efforts to free them, and they are not good. Nabi Berri, the leader of a powerful Shiite Muslim militia in Lebanon, has confirmed a widespread fear about Terry Waite. Berri says the Anglican envoy is now a hostage himself and that efforts are underway to free him. Waite was last seen in Beirut on January 20th on a mission to free American hostages Terry Anderson and Thomas Sutherland. Also today, the pro-Iranian group holding Anderson and Sutherland issued a new threat, saying it will kill both men if the U.S. takes military action against Lebanon. The Islamic Jihad released a picture of Anderson to back up that threat. The lives of 4 of the more recent hostages taken in Lebanon are also in question today. The group holding them promised to kill the 4 if Israel will not go along with a hostage swap. And Israel has said flatly it will not. Bob Simon has that story.
No request for a prisoner release has been received in Jerusalem, and none is expected. But just in case Washington was even thinking about requesting Israeli involvement in this, Defense Minister Rabin staged a preemptive strike last night.
We cannot make Israel the international bank of terrorists. It creates to Israel a new dimension of a problem that will make our struggle against terrorism almost impossible.
Israel has been involved in lopsided prisoner exchanges. In 1985, it released 1,150 Arab detainees, many of them convicted terrorists, in exchange for 3 Israeli soldiers. That made hundreds of Arab families and 3 Israeli families very happy, but it outraged public opinion here, which is why Jerusalem is telling Washington, don't even ask. Israel has been advising and urging the administration and European governments to get their citizens out of Beirut in a hurry. Arms to Iran is one thing, but on this one, there's nothing Israel can or will do to help. Bob Simon, CBS News, Tel Aviv.
An American journalist is being held in Iran, and it's not clear why. Gerald Saib is a reporter for the Wall Street Journal. He was taken into custody on Saturday. Just hours later, the Iranian news agency said a person posing as a journalist had been arrested for spying. It's not known if that person is Saib. The U.S. State Department is calling on Iran to let him go. The New York Times reports that private illegal arms sales to Iran were allowed for at least a year after the Pentagon found out about them. According to the report, the Pentagon did not stop the sales because it was trying to gain intelligence information about Iran and Soviet-made weapons.
In the Philippines today, the question was simple: yes or no on a new constitution. Millions of voters turned out, and early unofficial returns indicate that President Corazon Aquino is getting her wish: landslide approval. We have more on the story from Jerry Bowen in Manila.
The voting is over in the Philippines, and ballots are being tallied in this referendum on a U.S.-styled constitution that will legitimize the 11-month-old revolutionary government of President Corazon Aquino.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Mrs. Aquino voted in the old wooden schoolhouse on her family's sprawling sugarcane plantation 60 miles north of Manila, and predicted victory in the election that she styled a popularity contest. A heavy margin of victory will serve notice on her persistent critics from the left and right that people power is alive and well. A simple majority may be an invitation to further unrest. The voting, for the most part, was orderly, if not enthusiastic. A 90% turnout is expected in the end, encouraged in part by the $5 fine levied on those who don't go to the polls. There was minimal violence, some bombings, but no injuries in the hours before the polls opened. And there was an effort to keep the election clean. Voters' fingers were marked with indelible ink to keep them from showing up again. And more than 1 million fictitious names, ghost voters, were erased from the registration list. And a presidential spokesman said the government is very pleased.
This proves the maturity of the Filipino people and their dedication to the ideals of democracy.
Final results will not be known for several days. Jerry Bowen, CBS News, Manila.
Former Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos kept an eye on the voting from thousands of miles away in Hawaii. Terry Drinkwater reports even from that distance, Marcos claims he detected cheating.
While the polls were still open, Marcos emerged from his estate in exile to charge the election was fixed.
I have been informed
that massive cheating and fraud has already started in the Philippines. And the report is that the Corazon Aquino government is paying 100 pesos per vote of yes.
Most of those bribes, Marcos claimed, were street cleaners and other low-level government employees.
We are trying to get the evidence, and then we will present it to the proper authorities.
Earlier, Marcos said he had evidence that Aquino operatives secretly printed thousands of illegal ballots. Marcos has not provided any documentation to support his allegation. Aquino's spokesman denied the charges.
Mrs. Aquino's record in elections is pristine compared to him, who he was responsible for guns, goons, and gold. And for him to accuse Mrs. Aquino now of doing the very things that he used to do is, to me, hilarious.
Election fraud or not, the vote was a watershed event in the Philippines, during which Marcos was kept on the sidelines, frustrated to be so far from his homeland and still in exile. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Honolulu.
Earlier this morning, we spoke with Stephen Bosworth in Manila, the American ambassador to the Philippines. He told us he wasn't surprised by the charges made by Marcos, but Bosworth said he saw no evidence to support them. A California newspaper says Marcos and his entourage fled the Philippines last year with $7 million in cash and goods. The booty included cufflinks worth nearly $150,000 and a diamond tiara worth $58,000. The inventory was listed in the Orange County Register.
There is lighter news in the world. A lot of smiles down under today among the Americans who came out on top. Choppy seas helped the Stars and Stripes skipper, and the starting helmsman for the Australians says his crew is discouraged but not shattered. Barry Peterson has our report.
Already behind 2 races to none, Australia's Kookaburra was cheered out as she headed for race number 3, a day with lighter winds that might give her the edge. And Kookaburra was fast across the start, taking control of the race from the American Stars and Stripes and holding her own until Stars and Stripes cut behind, hauled over, and Kookaburra was in trouble. After that, it was a weekend sail for the Americans, so relaxed they were snapping pictures of each other. American skipper Dennis Conner even gave up the helm for a while to take a break and joke with his crew.
Get serious again. You clown.
The Americans may have been clowning, but it brought no smiles to the Australians, who watched Stars and Stripes cross the line first for the 3rd time in a row. And as she came home, there were cheers for Stars and Stripes, now 1 race away from winning the Cup, with a chance to turn the America's Cup into an American rout. Barry Peterson, CBS News, Fremantle.
It is, if you haven't remembered, Groundhog Day, the day when Punxsutawney Phil pokes his head out of his burrow to tell us whether spring is on its way. Now, tradition has it that if Phil sees his shadow, there will be 6 more weeks of winter. If he doesn't, spring is just around the corner. The weather news, some heavy storms are expected this morning from eastern Alabama through the Florida Panhandle. Besides heavy rain and high winds, you should watch out for some hail there as well, so be careful. Elsewhere in the south, heavy fog could be a problem from Oklahoma into Texas and Louisiana. In fact, in some areas, visibility could be less than a quarter mile, so commuters should allow some extra time to get to work. Could be dangerous. In the national picture, parts of the Northwest should see some rain and some snow. There is lots of rain across the southeast. Take your umbrella out with you. Temperatures will be on the mild side everywhere for this 2nd day of February, Groundhog Day. 9 minutes after the hour now.
This is the TV8 Morning News, brought to you by Direct Delivery and Distribution. Here's Todd Magel.
Good morning. Under cloudy skies, it's 39 degrees in Des Moines. Workers have started returning to their jobs at Deere & Company, ending the longest job stoppage in the history of Iowa's largest private employer. The labor dispute ended late last night with ratification of a new contract by the United Auto Workers Union. The first shift at the Ankeny's Deere plant returned about 11 last night. Because they've been off the job for more than 5 months, they received a safety refresher course. Nearly all of John Deere's 12,000 workers are returning to their jobs. However, Moline, Illinois rank and file rejected the new contract. The future of that plant is uncertain. The new Deere contract does not provide a wage increase. It does improve job security. In Sioux City, union meatpackers and the John Morrell Company are bracing for a possible strike next week when union members vote on the company's latest contract proposal. The pact, covering 800 members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, would roll back wages by $1 an hour. Union leaders say a strike is possible. Des Moines police are still looking for an automobile involved in a fatal hit-and-run accident early Sunday morning. Polk County Medical Examiner Dr. R.C. Wooter says 22-year-old Danetta Jones died after she was struck by a car near downtown Des Moines on Interstate 235 early Sunday. Police say they believe Jones was walking on the freeway when she was struck. A Sioux City couple is on their way to Des Moines today to verify an Iowa Lotto win of nearly $2 million. Teresa Ely and Tom Lucart guessed 6 correct numbers out of 36 to win the Lotto jackpot this weekend. The money should come in handy for the two who are planning to marry this spring. They say their wedding plans will remain simple, but the honeymoon, well, they say the sky's the limit. Authorities in Amarillo, Texas say an Iowa man whose body was found by coyote hunters in a canyon Saturday died of exposure. Sheriff's officers say the body of 56-year-old Keith Donald Stump of Des Moines had been exposed to the cold about 48 hours before he was discovered. Officials say Stump was an outpatient at the Vets Hospital in Amarillo, where he was being treated for a sleeping disorder. We'll be back after this.
If you're a shipper or business owner, you know how important a long-distance delivery service can be. You need a carrier that's fast, economical, and dependable. That's what direct delivery and distribution is all about. It's the only delivery service in Des Moines that guarantees overnight delivery by truck to and from these Nebraska cities. There's no weight limit, and our prices are competitive or better than other carrier services. For guaranteed overnight delivery, call Direct Delivery and Distribution. Service is our guarantee.
Despite some cloudiness, temperature should climb to the 50s. Tonight, the forecast is calling for partly cloudy, low 30. Tuesday, clouds will return, high near 40. Once again, in Des Moines, it's 39 degrees. Winds out of the south at 9 miles per hour. Back with more news and weather in about 10 minutes.
Here is further proof that all things change. The Statue of Liberty has her handout beginning today. Visitors now have to pay $1 to visit the statue as part of the National Parks Service program to cut costs. Now, Senator Bill Bradley of New Jersey is against the idea. He points out that Lady Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, and nowhere does it say that she asks for $1.
The dollar is taking another hit overseas. Ken Prewitt joins us with that story, the Wall Street Report. Now look at something that taxpayers fear the most, the dreaded audit. First, the dollar. Ken?
Faith, good morning. The American dollar has taken a beating in the past few weeks. It's lower again overseas this morning. And the New York Times reports that a meeting of the 5 leading industrial nations set for this coming weekend has been put off. The purpose of the gathering was to discuss what to do about the dollar, but there were some scheduling problems and uncertainty over whether the trade deficit is improving or not. Now, the overall economy rebounded in January. According to the National Association of Purchasing Management's membership survey, orders were up, so was production. Exports were up, imports are down. That's the kind of thing that can help corporate profits, something Wall Street's been counting on. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is up to 2158 this morning, up more than 56 points last week. In London, gold is up $1.50 at 406.50. Silver is up a nickel this morning at 5.53. You may not have figured out what tax reform is going to do to you, but there's one thing you can count on. Your chances of an audit are going up this year.
Time was, the only thing more certain about taxes than the April 15th deadline was the minuscule chance you had of being audited. In the past, the IRS was able to audit only one return in 100, but all that's changing.
We have projected to take on some 7,500 staff years over a 3-year period.
And because the new tax law eliminates most tax shelters, many agents who spent a lifetime looking into shelters will now be free to concentrate on your return.
All of those auditors that have been working on the tax shelters over the last few years are going to be free to audit normal expenditures, travel and entertainment, charitable deductions.
Taken together, this means that your chance of being audited will increase about 50%, but there are ways to safeguard your return. First, you have to understand how the IRS selects returns for audit.
Over the years, by doing completely random audits, the IRS has built a model of what an average taxpayer should be claiming in deductions. If your deduction is higher than that average,
there's a
secret computer system in the IRS that scores and rates all the returns for audit probability. There's actually a score given to each return. The higher scored returns are eventually pulled for audit.
Those averages are an IRS secret, but the areas where the IRS looks hardest for higher than average deductions are no secrets.
People investing in tax shelters might as well expect an audit, because I think the IRS is going to be hitting just about every tax shelter that they can get their hands on.
Other high-risk areas include deductions for business and travel expense that are larger than your income might justify. Deductions for casualty and theft loss, because the IRS knows that people often overstate. Deductions for bad debts, which are often just gifts to a relative or friend. And deductions for a home office.
Office in the home definitely is a key area that they're always looking for, because most people who take them aren't entitled to it.
You also increase your risk of audit if you underreport income. Computers have given the IRS the edge.
Right now, the IRS is matching something like 99% of all the W-2s, the 1099s on interest and dividends.
And there are some things that will trigger an audit that you just can't do anything about.
The statistics will show that those taxpayers whose income is above $50,000 a year have a higher chance of being audited.
And as always, the final word on taxes and audits belongs to the IRS.
Be honest and be careful. And don't be afraid to claim what is rightfully yours.
Now, there's one other thing we want to point out here. The IRS is getting tougher on cheaters. There's always been a penalty if you understate your tax liability by more than $5,000. This year, the penalty goes from 10% to 20%. That's in addition to the actual tax that you owe and, of course, the interest.
If you're one of the unfortunate ones who are audited, what's the usual bite, do we know?
Well, we've seen figures that the average audit produces an additional $4,000 for the Internal Revenue Service. Now, as long as you keep records, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. As long as everything is well documented, you can exceed those minimums.
Hundreds and thousands of papers stored away somewhere. Coming up next in the morning's news, the warranties on new cars are getting longer, but are you really protected against breakdowns? Our consumer reporter, Erin Moriarty, has the answer.
Hello, I'm Dick Terp from Intermart. We are contacting Des Moines area residents regarding the keyholder program. The merchants' names appearing in this commercial are just a few of the participating businesses. If you have not received your key, call 263-3092 for details. This is not a contest, and there is no cost or obligation. Call now.
Now at Hummel's Nissan, 3.9% APR financing or cash back on over 120 new cars and trucks. Hummel's has 3.9 financing or $400 cash back on 40 new 87 Sentras, 3.9 or cash back on stylish 87 Stanzas, including the four-wheel drive Stanza wagon, and 3.9 or up to $800 cash back on Hummel's hard bodies, the new Nissan trucks. Get a great winter deal from Iowa's #1 Nissan dealer, Hummel's Nissan.
On my show, we speak very explicitly.
There's only one Dr. Ruth.
You tell him to keep his mouth shut until he has a relationship, all right? Yeah, I would rather kill him than leave him. Not me. I'm too short for that. You would be in trouble with me, you know why?
You want to get married? You know.
No, I'm married.
Well, let's switch. And anyway,
For the truth, ask Dr. Ruth.
Ask Dr. Ruth, weeknights at 11, right after the Jeffersons on TV8.
At the Johnson Space Center today, a shuttle crew begins intensive training for the first time since the Challenger explosion. 5 astronauts, all space veterans, are meeting to review their training schedule. Shuttle flights are set to resume in February of next year.
Chrysler is out with a multi-page newspaper ad today, stepping up the automobile warranty war. What Chrysler is promising is that it will cover repairs on its cars longer than any of its competitors will. Consumer reporter Erin Moriarty analyzes this latest round of buyer incentives. Are they better for you or for the dealer? And by golly, I bet you have the answer.
Of course I do.
I knew you would.
But let me start with the past. In the past, the dealer always benefited. The sales incentives that car makers used in the past had a catch. A dealer could offer a $500 rebate and then make up the loss by just not bargaining as much on the purchase price. Well, today's longer warranties are a step in the right direction. They may not cover quite as much as you'd like, but they do give us more than we've had in the past. Ford was supposed to have said that an owner of one of his cars needed no other warranty than the Ford name. Well, that might have been fine when a car cost a few $100s, but today's models are priced at $15,000, $20,000. And whether it's a Ford, GM, or any other car, buyers expect a more specific guarantee. Witness the latest bait placed on the sales hook, a 6-year, 60,000-mile warranty. Now that covers what is known as the powertrain, items like the engine and transmission on both GM and Ford 1987 models. Both car makers are also offering a 6-year, 100,000-mile corrosion warranty. By far, these warranties provide the most extensive protection a domestic car maker has ever offered on a new vehicle without an additional charge. At least that was the most extensive coverage until Chrysler came out with an even bigger weapon in the incentives war, a 7-year, 70,000-mile warranty. Now, it sounds great, but actually none of these new warranties offers all-inclusive health insurance for your car. Think of them instead as catastrophic health insurance. They protect against the massive repairs that don't happen too often, but can cost you a lot when they do. In other words, you're still going to have to pay plenty for certain repairs out of your own pocket. Now, here's what the GM, Ford, and Chrysler warranties don't cover. Number one, any repair that costs less than $100. After the first 12 months or 12,000 miles, you pay the first $100 of any repair bill. Number two, GM won't cover cars it makes outside North America. That's the Sprint, Nova, Spectrum. Ford, however, does cover its imports. Number three, believe it or not, rust. Bubbles under the paint don't count under the new warranties. What's covered is only the kind of rot that starts inside and actually bores a hole all the way through the sheet metal. Finally, unless you buy a luxury automobile like a top-of-the-line Oldsmobile, a Cadillac, or Lincoln, you're going to have to pay for repairs to your brakes, your steering system, electrical system, starter, heater, or air conditioner, all out of your own pocket. Only repairs to the powertrain are covered by the new 6- and 7-year warranties. Not a lot of it, about 1% of the repairs that come up.
All right, thanks very much, Erin.
It is now 22 minutes after the hour.
Dieting is just too hard to do alone. I had 50 pounds to lose. And this is the lady who helped me do it. The counselors at Nutrisystem are really great. Robin picked me up when I was feeling down.
Betty made my job easy because she wanted to lose weight.
She made sure I reached my goal and taught me a whole new way of eating to help me stay there.
Call Nutrisystem. We succeed where diets fail you.
Nutrisystem is the best friend a diet ever had.
Special moments shouldn't be missed, not when heart disease is often preventable. Learn what you can do to help your heart next week on TV8 News.
When it's cold and rough outside, try something warm and creamy inside. Cream of wheat hot cereal and instant mix-and-eat. Their smooth texture always lets the flavor come through. Two great ways to come in from the cold.
I can't believe you don't know this stuff. You read the articles.
I read them.
Lay off the saturated fats, watch the cholesterol, and you know what too much salt can do.
What?
It's heavy stuff. And you still eat like that.
Fleischmann's Light, 25% less fat and salt than margarine, and no cholesterol.
Hey, I want you to care about this.
Okay, Dad.
This portion of the CBS Morning News was sponsored by Fleischmann's Margarines, 100% pure corn oil goodness and no cholesterol.
This is the TV8 Morning News. Here's Todd Magel.
Good morning. Under cloudy skies, it's 39 degrees in Des Moines. More than 12,000 John Deere & Company employees are heading back to work in Iowa and Illinois today. Sunday, they ratified a new contract with the farm implement manufacturer to end a 5.5-month strike and lockout. The first shift at Ankeny's Deere plant returned last night and received a safety refresher course. The new Deere contract will not provide a wage increase. It does improve job security. The contract was approved by all Deere workers except those in Moline, Illinois. The Minneapolis Star and Tribune Sunday reported the Army has found widespread recruiting violations at offices in Des Moines and other Midwest cities. The report said Army inspectors found recruiting units failed to list criminal records or check educational backgrounds of applicants. The degradation of enlistment standards is being blamed on pressure to meet recruiting goals. Another presidential hopeful is on his way to Iowa. Massachusetts Governor Michael Dukakis is considering a long-shot bid for the Democratic nomination. Officially, Dukakis is making the trip for a National Governors Association task force hearing on jobs in Des Moines, though state Democrats say he's coming to establish himself as a contender in the Iowa caucuses in early February 1988. Meanwhile, candidate Gary Hart completed a weekend swing through Iowa, telling a Council Bluffs audience that the federal government should pump $12 billion into education in the next 3 years. Hart says the money should come from a tariff on imported oil, higher taxes on alcohol and tobacco, a surtax on the rich, and various user fees. Democrat Hart opened a statewide office in Des Moines Saturday. Debate is expected in the Iowa House this week on a bill limiting gifts to lawmakers. The measure was approved by the Ethics Committee last week and revises a 1980 law that set a $50 limit on gifts. The law was declared unconstitutional last year by a Newton judge in a case involving lobbyists and the Mingo Bachelor Party. We'll be back after this.
It's the winter sale at Menards, and we're closing out heaters at the hottest prices of the season. Save now on radiant kerosene heaters, perfect for the workshop or garage. Oil-filled space heaters and portable electric heaters are on sale too. Or choose quartz heaters for instant direct heat. This 1,000-watt heater is on sale now, closeout price at just $19.88. Hurry in for closeout savings this week at Menards.
We're helping you build America's heartland at Menards.
If you liked yesterday's forecast, you'll love today's. Despite some cloudiness, temperatures should climb to the lower to mid-50s. Tonight's forecast is calling for partly cloudy skies and low near 30. Tuesday, clouds will return, cooler temperatures on a high near 40. Once again in Des Moines, it's 39 degrees with winds out of the south at 9 miles per hour. Back with more news in about 15 minutes.
Next on the morning program, Emma Sands, Hunts Hall, and Roy Blunt Jr.
Syndicated columnist Jack Anderson, next on the morning program.
We are watching these stories as they develop this Monday. The Anglican Church is hoping for word about envoy Terry Waite in Beirut. A Muslim group in Lebanon is saying that Waite has been kidnapped, as was feared. The United States will be trying through the Swiss embassy in Tehran to gain the release of Wall Street Journal correspondent Gerald Seib, now under detention in Iran. And we'll get more results from today's referendum in the Philippines on a new constitution. Early returns, unofficial, indicate overwhelming approval.
April Fools came a little early this year to Whitman College in Walla Walla, Washington, and no one at the college is laughing. It seems the college got a letter saying that it had won the American Philosophical Association Award for undergraduate philosophy studies. Pretty impressive. The Alumni magazine printed an article about the award, but a follow-up by a newspaper said it was all a big hoax. Maybe Plato would have some consoling thoughts about that.
He would have pointed out that all these awards are just shadows on the cave's wall anyway. That is the CBS Morning News for this Monday, February 2nd. I'm Forrest Sawyer.
And I'm Faith Daniels. You have a great Monday.
This is CBS.
You pour seed and fertilizer, herbicide, and hard work into your corn crop. You could protect that input with just any rootworm insecticide, or you could use Lorsban 15G and get protection from rootworms, as well as cutworms, wireworms, grubs, seed corn maggots, and other insects, and avoid problems with seed safety. This year, Get more out of your rootworm insecticide. In conservation or conventional tillage, use Lorsban 15G. It's corn security.
In Ottumwa, tune to translator channel 74 for better reception